Hello, curious minds. Welcome to this intellectual journey. Today, we're going to explore an idea that could forever change the way you see your phone, your computer, and your entire digital life. An idea as simple as it is terrifying, one that will make us question the very foundations of our modern era. Have you ever wondered if all the freedom you experience online, that ability to connect with anyone, to access all human knowledge, is truly freedom? Or if, on the contrary, it's the most sophisticated form of enslavement that has ever existed in history? At first glance, the answer seems obvious. Of course, we're freer. We can work from home, learn any skill, express our opinions to the entire world. Never before has the individual had so much apparent power at their fingertips. But it's in that word apparent where the trap truly lies. To understand this, we first need to discuss an old philosophical idea, the concept of the panopticon. It was conceived by philosopher Jeremy Bentham in the 18th century. Imagine a circular prison with a watchtower in the center. The guard can see all the prisoners, but they never know if they're being watched. The result of this design is that prisoners behave as if they're constantly under surveillance. They end up self-regulating their own behavior. They become their own wardens. This idea, proposed centuries ago, is the cornerstone for understanding our current digital reality. Now think about your online life. Every click, every like, every search, every second you spend watching a video, it's all recorded. There's no physical central tower, but there's something far more powerful, an invisible and omnipresent surveillance system that documents absolutely everything. Big tech corporations and governments have access to an amount of information about us that would have been the envy of any tyrant in history. They know our fears, our desires, our political leanings, our weaknesses, and we hand it over willingly. We don't feel the weight of this surveillance because it's subtle. It's integrated into services we love and that make our lives easier. It's surveillance that doesn't punish with physical violence, but subtly molds our behavior through the information it presents to us. And this is where algorithms come into play. An algorithm is, in simple terms, a set of rules or instructions designed to solve a problem. On social media and content platforms, their primary goal is just one: to keep your attention for as long as possible. To achieve this, the algorithm studies you. It learns what you like, what angers you, what surprises you. Then it starts building a digital universe tailored just for you. It shows you only the content that reinforces your existing beliefs and maximizes your emotional interaction with the platform. This phenomenon is known as the filter bubble or echo chamber. You live in a personalized informational reality where you're almost never exposed to ideas that challenge your worldview. You believe you're exploring an infinite universe of information, but in reality, you're walking down a hallway designed just for you. The consequences of this are profound. Social polarization skyrockets because we no longer share a common reality with those who think differently. Debate becomes impossible when each person lives in their own universe of facts confirmed by their personal algorithm. But the manipulation goes beyond politics. Algorithms don't just shape what we think, they also shape what we desire. They show you products exactly when you're most vulnerable, suggest lifestyles that make you feel dissatisfied with your own. They create needs you didn't even know you had. We become predictable consumers. Our supposed freedom of choice is reduced to picking from options that a system has pre-selected for us, based on an incredibly detailed psychological profile that we ourselves have helped build, click by click. Think about it for a moment. The business model of many of these platforms is based on the attention economy. If you're not paying for the product, it's because you are the product. Your attention, your time, and your data are the goods sold to the highest bidder, whether they're advertisers or political actors. To keep us hooked, these applications are designed with the same principles as slot machines. Neuroscience researchers have confirmed that notifications, likes, and infinite scrolling activate our brain's reward centers, releasing dopamine. Dopamine is a neurotransmitter associated with pleasure and motivation. This system of variable and intermittent rewards creates a compulsion loop. We check our phones again and again, searching for that little hit of chemical validation, that small surprise in our feed. It's not a lack of willpower on your part. It's the result of an incredibly sophisticated design, created by teams of engineers and psychologists whose job is precisely to capture and retain your consciousness. It's a battle for your mind that's being fought every second of the day. This constant connection, paradoxically, can also generate a profound sense of loneliness and alienation. Alienation is a sociological concept that describes the feeling of being isolated from a group or an activity one should belong to, feeling like a stranger in your own life. We see idealized and curated versions of other people's lives, which leads us to constantly compare ourselves and feel that our own lives are insufficient. We have hundreds or thousands of online friends, but the quality of real, deep human interactions often diminishes. We are connected to a global network, yet disconnected from ourselves, from our local communities, and from the people right next to us. Communication becomes performative, an act for an invisible audience rather than a genuine connection. Now, it's not about demonizing technology. Digital tools have brought undeniable benefits to humanity, democratizing knowledge and enabling connections that were once impossible. The problem isn't the tool itself, but the system that drives it and its hidden objectives. The current system isn't optimized for our well-being, but for the extraction of our attention. Our personal growth, mental health, and autonomy are not the primary variables in the algorithm's equation that govern our digital experience. And so, we return to the initial question: are we free? Freedom requires autonomy, the ability to make conscious and deliberate decisions. But how autonomous is a decision when it has been subtly influenced by a system designed to predict and mold your desires? Here's the most revealing insight. The most perfect cage isn't one with iron bars, but an invisible one, built from the bricks of our own habits and desires. A prison where the inmate doesn't know they're confined and, in fact, believes it's the freest place in the world. Our chains aren't made of metal. They are psychological chains, forged with every notification that gives us a dopamine hit, with every video the algorithm recommends, with every piece of news that confirms our biases. They are chains we don't feel, and that's precisely why they are the most effective. The great enslavement of our era isn't noisy or violent. It's a silent, voluntary, and participatory enslavement. We shape it every day with our online activity, reinforcing the walls of our own bubble, feeding the system that studies and guides us. We have delegated critical parts of our decision-making to automated systems. What to watch, what to read, what to buy, whom to listen to. We trust that these systems know us better than we know ourselves, and in many cases, thanks to big data, they might just be right. This leads us to a form of algorithmic determinism, where our future and our actions become increasingly predictable, not because we're forced, but because we're efficiently guided along the path of least cognitive resistance, the path the algorithm has paved for us. Critical thinking, the ability to question and seek different perspectives, atrophies in an environment that constantly tells us we're right. Serendipity, the fortunate discovery by accident, vanishes when every step of our digital exploration is choreographed. The illusion of freedom is maintained because we always have the option to turn off our phone, to close our computer, but this choice becomes increasingly difficult. Our social, professional, and personal lives are so intertwined with the digital world that disconnecting feels like self-imposed exile. This dependence creates a new form of power, a power that doesn't rely on brute force, but on control over the infrastructure of communication and information. Whoever controls the flow of information controls the perception of reality for millions of people. The problem is that this power is concentrated in very few hands, in corporations whose commercial interests don't always align with the common good. And it all operates under a veil of technical complexity that makes it inaccessible and incomprehensible to the majority of the population. We face an unprecedented asymmetry of power. They know everything about us while we know very little about them and how their systems operate. This inequality of knowledge is the foundation of any effective form of control and manipulation. So what can we do? Are we doomed to be puppets in this digital theater? Not necessarily. The first and most crucial step is awareness. Understanding the nature of this invisible cage is the first act towards transcending it. Being aware of how algorithms work, that our feed isn't a neutral representation of reality, but a construction designed to keep us hooked. This awareness allows us to step back and start questioning what we see and why we see it. The second step is to cultivate digital hygiene. This means actively taking control of our attention, disabling non-essential notifications, setting schedules for using certain apps, and consciously seeking out information sources and perspectives that challenge our beliefs. It's about shifting from being a passive consumer of content to an intentional and critical user. Ask yourself before clicking, why am I being shown this? What emotion is it trying to elicit in me? What action do they want me to take after seeing this? Fostering real and deep human interactions is another powerful antidote. Prioritizing a face-to-face conversation over 100 superficial online interactions. Reconnecting with our local communities, with nature, with activities that don't require a screen. We also need to demand greater transparency and accountability from tech platforms. As a society, we have the right to know how our data is being used and how the algorithms that so profoundly influence our lives make their decisions. It's not a trade secret, it's a matter of civil rights. Regulation can be part of the solution, establishing limits on data collection and the design of addictive features, especially to protect the young. Technology should serve humanity, not humanity serve technology. Let's remember that human history is a constant struggle for freedom, a fight against different forms of oppression, both visible and invisible. The current battle is being fought on the terrain of the mind, on the battlefield of attention. It is the frontier of freedom in the 21st century. Real digital freedom isn't unlimited access to a fenced garden curated by others. True freedom is mental autonomy. It's the ability to form your own thoughts, to control your own attention, and to choose your own path, even if that path isn't the one the algorithm recommends. This isn't a call to abandon technology, but to master it, to use it as the tool it is, without allowing it to become our master, to be the architects of our own digital experience, rather than mere inhabitants of an architecture designed to control us. Next time you find yourself endlessly scrolling, lost in a sea of content, stop for a second, breathe, and ask yourself, am I using this tool or is this tool using me? The answer to that question can be your first step towards true freedom. Let's think about the language we use. We talk about users, a term also applied in the context of drugs. This is no coincidence. The model is designed to create dependency, so we return again and again in search of our next digital stimulus fix. Sovereignty over our own consciousness is perhaps the most fundamental human right. Without it, all other rights and freedoms lose their meaning. If we don't own our own thoughts, what do we truly have left? The future doesn't have to be a dystopia of algorithmic control. We can imagine and build a different digital future. A technological ecosystem designed to enrich our lives, foster genuine connection, and enhance our collective intelligence without manipulating us. This change won't come from big corporations alone. It requires collective demand, a mass awakening to the mechanisms operating behind our screens. It requires us to value our attention and our autonomy as much as we value our convenience. In the end, the great digital paradox forces us to confront an age-old philosophical question. What does it mean to be free? Perhaps freedom isn't the absence of restrictions, but the ability to consciously choose what we pay attention to and what we allow to shape our minds. The information hidden from us is just as important as the information shown to us. In our filter bubble, the greatest control isn't direct censorship, but silencing by omission. We don't see the stories, data, or opinions that could change our perspective because the algorithm has decided they aren't relevant to us. This process erodes our empathy. If we're never exposed to the struggles or viewpoints of groups different from our own, we start to see them not as complex people, but as caricatures or abstractions. The algorithm unintentionally becomes a driver of dehumanization. Another aspect to consider is memory. We externalize our memory to devices and the cloud. We remember less because we know information is just a click away. This makes us more dependent on the system and potentially less capable of thinking independently and connecting ideas in novel ways. Creativity can also be affected. Recommendation algorithms guide us along well-worn paths, suggesting music, books, or films similar to what we already like. This can stifle exploration and the discovery of the truly new and revolutionary, which is often found outside our comfort zone. We are at a crossroads. One path leads us to greater integration with these systems, to an intelligent society where efficiency and personalization are maximized, but at the cost of our autonomy and privacy. It's a future of controlled convenience. The other path is that of digital sovereignty, a future where tools are at our service, where technology respects our attention and fosters diversity of thought. A more difficult path requiring effort, awareness, and a constant struggle to maintain control. The choice between these two futures won't be made by a government or a company. It's made every day with every click, with every conscious decision to close an app or actively seek out a different perspective. The future is built by billions of small, everyday actions. Education is fundamental. We need a new literacy, a digital literacy that not only teaches how to use the tools, but to understand their inner workings, their biases, and their impact on us and society. We must teach new generations to be skeptical and critical. The concept of identity also transforms in this environment. We construct digital avatars, carefully selected and edited versions of ourselves. This pressure to maintain a perfect image can generate anxiety and a disconnection between our real self and our projected self. The gamification of life, where social interactions are measured in points, likes, and followers, turns us into constant competitors for attention. Popularity is valued above authenticity, and connection becomes a metric to optimize. This algorithmic social pressure is subtle yet immense. If an opinion is unpopular within our bubble, we might self-censor to avoid conflict or the loss of digital social status. Thus, the panopticon is completed, with users monitoring and regulating each other. Let's not underestimate the power of boredom. In the past, moments of inactivity were when our minds wandered, made unexpected connections, and were most creative. Today, Every potential second of boredom is immediately filled with a stimulus from our phone. We've lost the space for introspection. Silence, both external and internal, has become a scarce and valuable resource. Finding moments to simply be with our own thoughts without the mediation of an algorithm is a radical act of self-defense in the modern world. We must learn to distinguish between the urgent and the important. Notifications scream at us that everything is urgent, that we must respond now, watch this now. But what's truly important in life, like relationships, deep work, or self-knowledge, is rarely urgent and requires uninterrupted time and attention. Privacy has been redefined. Before it was a right, the right to be left alone. Now, for many, it has become a transaction. We surrender our privacy in exchange for convenience, for free services. But the price we pay isn't immediately obvious. The price is the loss of autonomy, susceptibility to manipulation, and the creation of a permanent record of our lives that can be used against us in ways we cannot yet imagine. Today's convenience can be tomorrow's shackle. Resistance to the system doesn't have to be a Luddite act, destroying technology. The most effective resistance is to cultivate a mind that technology cannot easily hack. A critical, conscious mind that owns its own attention. Supporting alternative, decentralized technologies that aren't based on the data extraction model is another form of action. Seeking out platforms that respect the user, are open source, and whose sole purpose isn't maximizing screen time. Ask yourself, who benefits from me believing this? Who makes money if I feel this emotion? Who benefits from me spending my next 10 minutes watching this? Following the money and the power often reveals the hidden logic behind our digital experience. Freedom ultimately is a responsibility. The responsibility to think for ourselves, to seek truth beyond the comfort of our bubble, and to consciously decide how and for what purpose we use the powerful tools at our disposal. The great twist of our era is this: modern slavery doesn't require walls or physical chains. It only needs an environment comfortable, entertaining, and personalized enough that we never want to leave. An environment that makes us feel free while silently shaping us. We aren't prisoners of an external force that hates us. We are participants in a system that pleases us into submission. The warden of our digital prison isn't a tyrant. It's an algorithm that just wants to give us exactly what it thinks we want, over and over again. The real trap isn't that we're being watched. It's that we're being watched to be understood better than we understand ourselves, and to use that knowledge to guide us along predictable paths that benefit others. The manipulation is so perfect that it feels like free will. Convenience is the new opiate of the masses. We remain docile and distracted, not by the threat of punishment, but by the constant promise of the next viral video, the next notification, the next little dopamine hit. It's a soft, yet immensely powerful control. We have traded the uncertainty and complexity of real life for the certainty and simplicity of an algorithmically curated world. But in that exchange, we run the risk of losing our capacity to deal with ambiguity, difference, and the true adventure of discovery. The final irony is that, in our search for global connection, we have built a system that isolates us individually into perfect bubbles, connected to everything but without real contact with anything that challenges us or makes us grow in unexpected ways. Reclaiming our digital freedom isn't a matter of technology, but of personal philosophy. It's deciding, as individuals and as a society, that human consciousness is too valuable to be treated as a mere commodity to be extracted and sold. This awareness doesn't make us free overnight, but it transforms us from unconscious prisoners to prisoners who know the walls exist. And only when you know the walls can you start planning your escape, or better yet, tearing them down. The battle for the human mind is in full swing. It's silent, invisible, and fought on the screens we carry in our pockets. And in this battle, our attention isn't just the prize, it's the battlefield itself. At the end of the day, technology is a mirror that reflects and amplifies who we already are. If we are passive consumers, it will turn us into super consumers. If we are critical and conscious citizens, it can become the greatest tool for liberation the world has ever known. It's not about living in fear of technology, but with a deep respect for the power it wields over our psychology. It's about approaching it with the same caution and awareness with which we would approach any force capable of reshaping our perception of reality. Digital humanism should be our compass. The idea that technology should be designed to complement our strengths as human beings, like creativity, empathy, and critical thinking, rather than exploit our weaknesses like addiction and confirmation bias. Every time you choose to read a book instead of scrolling, every time you have a deep conversation instead of a superficial online chat, you are casting a vote. You are declaring that your mind is not for sale. This struggle for attention is the struggle to define what it means to be human in the 21st century. Are we simply nodes in a network, information processors to be optimized? Or are we autonomous beings with rich inner lives capable of directing our own consciousness? Freedom isn't a final state, it's a continuous practice. It's the daily exercise of awareness, choice, and intention. In the digital age, this practice is more challenging and more necessary than ever. Let's not wait for a regulator or a politician to save us. Change begins with the sovereignty of our own screen, in the decision of what content to consume, how to interact with it, and when simply to turn it all off and see the world with our own eyes. So next time you pick up your phone, remember the invisible cage. Remember the power you have to assert your autonomy with every choice. Your attention is your greatest power. Don't give it away lightly. In conclusion, our digital freedom is an illusion if we don't exercise it with critical awareness. It's a silent enslavement if we allow comfort and distraction to guide us. True freedom requires effort, and today that effort is mental. Thank you for joining me on this deep reflection. I hope it has given you tools to navigate our complex digital world with greater wisdom and autonomy. I sincerely appreciate your time and attention. Now it's your turn. Do you feel free or trapped in your digital life? What strategies do you use to maintain your autonomy? Share your experience in the comments and subscribe for more mind-challenging journeys.